سيدنا محمد وعلى سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان الله بحمده سبحان الله العظيم. سبحان الله بحمده سبحان الله العظيم. سبحان الله بحمده سبحان الله العظيم. مدد يا الله. Inshallah, we will continue today with the advices of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. अबू ज़र रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु बयान करते हैं कि मेरे खलील ने मुझे 7 चीज़ों के मुतालिक हुक्म फरमाया। आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने मसाकीन से मोहब्बत करने और उनके करीब रहने का मुझे हुक्म फरमाया। आपने मुझे हुक्म फरमाया कि मैं अपने से कमतर की तरफ देखूं और जो मुझसे दुनिया के लिहाज से बढ़तर है उसकी तरफ न देखूं। आपने मुझे सिला रहमी का हुक्म फरमाया, अगरचे वो क़ता रहमी करें। आपने मुझे हुक्म फरमाया कि मैं किसी से कोई चीज़ न मांगूं। आपने मुझे हुक्म फरमाया कि मैं हक़ बात करूं अगरचे वो कड़वी हो। आपने मुझे हुक्म फरमाया कि मैं अल्लाह के हक़ के बारे में किसी मलामत गर की मलामत से न डरूं। और आपने मुझे हुक्म फरमाया कि मैं ला हौला वला कुव्वता इल्ला बिल्लाह कसरत से पढ़ा करूं, क्योंकि ये कलमात अर्श के नीचे ख़जानों में से ख़जाना है। Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu narrated, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, my close friend Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered me with 7 things. Number 1, to love the poor and to be close to them. Number 2, to look to those who are less fortunate than me and not to those who are above me. Number 3, to maintain the ties of kinship even if they break them off. Number 4, to not ask anyone for anything. Number 5, to speak the truth even if it is unpleasant. Number 6, to not fear from the censors of the critics. And number 7, that I abundantly recite La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-azim. There is no might, no power except with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as this is from the treasures that are underneath the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's look at each one of these nasiha of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number 1, to love the poor and to be close to them. Anas radiallahu anhu has narrated that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "O Allah, keep me alive as a miskin and take me from this world as a miskin and put me amongst the group of masakin." Aisha radiallahu anha asked him, why? Why do you want to be poor? He said, the masakin, the poor, will go to Jannah 40 years before the rich. And he said, Ya Aisha, never ever turn away a miskin that comes to you for help. Love the poor, keep them close, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep you close in the day of judgment. There are many ahadith about miskin and poor people. But it is important to understand who is a miskin. In this world, nobody likes to be poor. Yes. There's no human being who likes to be poor. But there's a difference between the poor and the miskin. It's very important to understand. There are lots of poor people in this world. Very poor. very muhtaj. But there are not many masakin in this world. So what's the difference? A miskin is a person who is content with whatever Allah has given him. That is a miskin. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him small amounts of this dunya, he is content with it. He does not complain. He does not go begging to people. He only begs to people, asks for people when he is absolutely in need and does not have any other option. But outside of it, there are many, many masakin, the real masakin, you would not even know that they are poor and how poorly they are living because they are content with it. Contentment with what Allah has given you is not easy. बहुत समझ की बात है. Being content with what Allah has given us is not an easy thing because we always look for more. We always want more. And we always want what everybody else has. Which is where the second advice comes in. He said to look to those who are less fortunate than you, rather than to look at those who are given better to you than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why is that? Any human being, anybody, however poor there he is or she is, there is somebody else less poor than him. Any human being, in any kind of circumstances, if he truly looks around, he will find somebody even doing not as good as he is doing. When we look at somebody who is not doing as good as he is doing, then this person feels a sense of gratefulness. At least I'm better than him. At least I'm not suffering as much as this person is. Similarly, it is not about just the wealth and the money. It's about everything. For example, we all keep going through different circumstances in life. As I mentioned somewhere along the line, there's not any day that goes by that this life does not throw at us one or the other difficulty. This is life. And it is always unexpected. You don't expect those things to happen. And when those unexpected things suddenly happens, we lose our patience. And we lose, say, why me? I don't get any sigh of relief. It's one thing after the other, etc., etc., etc. But at that time, like I mentioned somewhere the other day, at that time, if we look at people who are in worse conditions than us, if we look at people who are even suffering more than we are suffering right now, then we begin to look at the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us at this moment. When a person becomes content with everything that Allah puts him through, whether it is the money, the wealth, children, circumstances, whatever he goes through, if he remains content, he's a miskin.
That's right.
Then he's a miskin. If a poor person starts complaining, you don't want to be with those kind of people. You don't want to be included in those kinds of people who are discontent with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In another hadith, just the further explanation, in another hadith, Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu narrated, he said, when you see somebody more wealthy, more beautiful, more strong, then look at those who are not as wealthy, not as strong, not as beautiful. And he said, there's another Muslim, Imam Muslim narrated this. In the matter of this world, in the material things of this world, always keep your eye on, always focus on those who don't have as much as you do. Why? Because it is more important that you do not think less of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon you. When you look at somebody who is more wealthy, more strong, more wise, more beautiful than you, then you begin to not appreciate the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon you. And it is a major sin not to appreciate and value and be grateful for the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us. Advice number 3, he said, maintain the ties of kinship, even if they break them off. Allah says in the Quran in Surah An-Nisa, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. And fear Allah through whom you demand your mutual rights. And do not cut the relationships of the womb, kinship. Surely Allah is ever and all watcher over you. If you think about why is it that we have problems in our relationships, this verse points to a very important thing. Allah says, fear Allah through whom you demand your mutual rights. How are you going to go about it? When we begin to demand our rights from either our wives, our husbands, our children, our friends, our bosses, whoever, then essentially what happens is, if those demands will not be met, we are going to be unhappy with them. सीधी सी बात. We are going to be unhappy with them. We are going to complain. We are going to, say bad things about them to other people. And because our expectations were not met. As a result, all of these behaviors come along, it further darkens our heart. And we break the relationship. We say, I don't want to have anything to do with this person. I would never talk to this person. I would never do this. And then you cut off relationships. And this happens for years. People do not talk to each other. For years, families do not talk about each other. Why? Because somebody felt that their justice was not done with their rights. Justice was not done with their rights. Although, we need to understand that the rights and obligations go side by side. I have some rights, but I have some obligations as well. If I have some rights over my wife, then I also have some obligations towards her. And those are not mutually inclusive. ये बहुत समझने की बात है. The rights and obligations are not mutually inclusive. They are mutually exclusive. In other words, you have to fulfill your obligations regardless of whether your rights were met or not. Because you would be asked, not whether your rights were met or not. You'd be asked whether you fulfill the obligations that Allah had placed upon you of other people. And your spouse, your husband, your wife, your children will be asked if they fulfill their obligations to fulfill the rights that others have upon them. Which is why we make lots of mistakes if we don't understand that rights and obligations are not mutually inclusive. They are not conditions upon each other. That obligations are unconditional. You're not obliged to fulfill somebody's rights only if they fulfill your rights. अगर ऐसा हो, if this was the case, then nobody would do anything for anybody. And this is what's happening. Animosity between the people, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, uncles, it's just all over the place. Just because we don't understand these two things. Even when I talk to people who are having problems, and husbands and wives, and I ask them, but this is your wife's right, or this is your husband's right. The first thing I hear back from them, but he's not fulfilling my rights either.
99.9% people are like that. No
Exactly.
wonder. 99.9. They demand their rights first, and then they wanna obligatory their
Exactly.
own side. So
Exactly. So this is this misunderstanding.
yeah.
And if I explain to them that you are going to be held accountable for your obligations, and the other person will be held accountable for their obligations, whether they gave you the right or not. So if you chose not to fulfill your obligations, the excuse that she or he did not fulfill my rights will not be an excuse. That will not be an excuse. Because we are responsible and accountable for our own deeds.
Yeah.
Now, a Sahabi came to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and he was talking about the Sila Rahmi, the rights, the maintaining the ties of the kinship, not breaking them. And the Sahabi said, but Ya Rasulullah, what if they are not being just to us? What if they are not being right with us? What if they are doing things that are not fair with us? What if they are breaking up the relationship? He said, it is then that you're required not to break it. Because if they're all good with you, why would that be a problem? Why would that be a problem? Right? So doing this is not easy. I often give this example from my family. I will not forget this. I was a child, and we had a relative from my father's side. She was her khala, her mother's sister. And she became upset with him about something. This is very common in our countries. Very, very common. She became upset with him. She was at our place. And she became upset with him about something. And she became so upset that she got up and she said, I would never see your face again, to my father. I would never talk to you again. And she walked off. Well, obviously, women don't take these things easily. So my mother was very offended,
Yeah.
obviously, right? And then came Ramadan Eid. And it was a family custom that my father will take us all to meet with relatives who are older, to meet with them and to say Eid Mubarak to them and to say salam to them. And hers was one house that we went always. So on the Eid day, my father said, get ready, we are going to go visit our relatives. So my mother said, are we going to visit your khala, this one as well? She says, yeah, why not? She said, what are you doing? She came, she on your face in your house told you, I don't want to see your face. I will never talk to you again. You know what he said? That was her problem. I'm not going to make that my problem. We are going to go. And he took us there, knocked on the door. She opened the door and she said, Eid Mubarak and Salam. What would she say? देखो अच्छाई से लड़ा नहीं जा सकता. You cannot fight kindness. एक बात समझ लो. You cannot find kindness. Kindness is a choice. To remain merciful and kind is a choice. She invited us in. We said our salams and du'as and we left. Whatever she did, she's going to be held accountable for it. But my father's kind deed on that day must have influenced her behavior and her own heart. So this is not easy to come. People get too emotional and they allow themselves to go by that emotion. So Rasulullah said, even if they break the relationship, you have to maintain it. The person who perfectly maintains the ties of kinship is not the one who does it because he gets recompense by the relative. But the one who truly maintains the bonds of kinship is the one who persists in doing so even though the other has severed the ties of kinship. Let's go to the next one. It said, not to ask anything from anyone. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever refrains from asking of people, Allah will make him self-sufficient. Allah will make him content. Whoever seeks to be independent of means, Allah will make him independent. And whoever strives to be patient, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bestow patience upon him. And no one is ever given anything better and more abundant than patience and faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you ask something from someone, we live in a time, it's very unfortunate, but this is the reality we live in. If we go to somebody asking for something, immediately they begin to look down on us. ये मांगने के लिए आया है. And they start judging you. And they start wanting to inquire about why do you need this and what's going on and tell us more about it. This, which is none of their business. Am I right? I came to you and says, I'm in need of this one. Can you please help me? You have the choice to either give it to me or say, I'm sorry, I'm not able to give it to you. Please forgive me. But you don't have the right to tell me more about what's going on. I need to know this first. You don't have that right. But this is what happens. Hey, if you can give somebody, give it. And remember something very important. The giver is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not you and me who give anything. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who gives. But because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not descend down himself or send the angels to give it to you, he puts it in the hearts of people to give. He puts it in the hearts of the people to give. And if you say, I trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will not abandon me. Allah knows my need. He will not abandon me. I'm going to here mention very quickly, it just came to my mind, the story of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. When Musa alayhi salatu wasalam by mistake, killed this person of Bani Israel, and he ran from there because he feared his life, and he went to Madian. He went to the city of Madian, and when he reached the boundaries of the city, there was a well, and all the shepherds were, you know, pulling the water out to feed their sheep. And on the side there were two women standing with their sheep. You know the story. And he asked them, "Why are you standing there?" He says, "We don't have any men around us, and we can't go in between these men. When they're going to finish, then we'll feed our sheep." He went and he brought the water from amongst the men and gave it to these two sisters for their sheep. And ये बात की बात है ना, वो असर है. What happened after is the main thing to understand. Then he went and he sat down, leaning against the trunk of a tree. And he said, "Ya Allah, I have come here. I have reached here, and you know my need." He left the city, he left Egypt without anything on him except his clothes. Because the person who came running to him from the outer edges of the city told him that the Pharaoh is looking for him. Run, because they're going to kill you. So whatever he had on his back and the clothing, he left. And only Allah knows how long would have taken for him to reach Madian. He did not worry about himself. He saw these poor two women in need, and he chose to help them. And he sat. He didn't go looking for somebody to help him. He sat, leaned against a tree, in the shade of a tree, and says, "I have arrived here, and I'm your muhtaj." And a little while later, one of those two women came and said, "My father is calling you." And then you know the rest of the story. How does this happen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala meant to provide Musa alayhi salam the help that he needed at the time, and at the same time prepare him for prophethood. Because by that time he was not a prophet. Am I right? So he put in the hearts of these two women, or one woman, to talk to the father and say, "Look, we need somebody, a male, to help us around. This is a good man. Why don't you hire him?" Who put that in their hearts? And the father, when he sees him, says, "Welcome. You have done such a good deed. I would like to marry one of your daughters to you. And you stay here for me 7 years and you serve me. And if you wanted to do 10 years, that's your choice." But Allah made a way for him to get what he was meant to get without him asking for it, without him asking anyone, begging to anyone about it. He didn't even know. There's a one very beautiful story. I'm not sure if this is a hikayat. It's not a hadith for sure. This is a story written in the books of scholars. There were two miskin who had decided not to live with people anymore because they were haram, all kinds of things were going on. They retired in some mountaintop. They retired in some mountaintops. So this one person was living on this side of the mountain, the other person was living on that side of the mountain. They had no other way of feeding themselves except what Allah brought them. But for this one person, a deer will come every day. A female deer would come every day. And she would stand beside him and let him take milk from her. This is how Allah provides. It was put in this deer's heart to go there to provide him with rizq. And he just lived by, he was content with it. He just lived by this. The other person ran around and find some bushes, something, berries to eat, and go on, look for something. One day, this other person saw a caravan passing by. And he ran to this other person. He says, hey, look, there's a caravan coming by. And they have camped down here. Why don't we go down there and get something fresh and hot to eat? This other person thought about it for 1 minute. And he thought about this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already provided risk for me. Should I go? But he said, maybe I should. Maybe I should. Maybe I would have something different than the deer milk every day. So they both went. And they asked the people in the caravan for food. And they were given the food. But when they came back up in the mountains, the deer stopped coming.
Allah.
It's just like when Musa alayhi salam's people were sent manna salwa, and they were not grateful for it. It was gone. Go work for it then. So if you're depending upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you don't beg and go to anybody else, एक तो ये कि आपकी इज्जत बच जाती है. You save your honor. You protect your honor by not spreading your hand at somebody else. Because generally people of this world will not respect those who would ask for anything. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanallah. Number 5. To say the truth even if it is unpleasant. To stand for the truth even if it is unpleasant. And this is verified by in the verse of the Quran when Allah said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha wa qulu qawlan sadida. Believers, keep your duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fear Him and always speak the truth. ये भी आसान बात नहीं है. This is not easy as well, to always stand up for the truth. Because if we see that by speaking the truth, I'm going to get hurt, or somebody's going to get hurt, we will not speak the truth. Am I right? Very few have the guts to stand up and say, this is not true. This is not true. Very few. Commonly, no. They will not stand up for the truth, especially if you know that speaking the truth is going to cause problem for them or somebody new. Which is what is related on the number 7. Number 7 and 6 are connected. Number 6 says, to say the truth, to not fear the critique of the critics in speaking the truth. कि कोई क्या कहेगा. And there's a verse of the Quran about that as well. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما. Believers, stand out firmly for justice, for the truth, as a witness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even as against yourself or your parents or your kin, and whether it be against rich or poor, for Allah can best protect both. Now just tell me, if we just practice this, lots of our problems will be solved.
But also a lot of people will run away as well.
True.
People near to us, to tell them the truth, how it feels or how it is, the other side of the ring, they will be thinking that they have the higher status or they have a higher relationship. So there's a bigger possibility nowadays because people have less tolerance and more demanding of their rights. So then that's why then there's another ayah, in Allah ma sabirin, but also the other side, while the people are suffering as well with this, I don't know if it's that easy or what
It's
to do.
never easy. Look, I'm gonna share with you a personal experience. Many years ago, I was in a Jummah prayer. So it was Friday prayer, and the Imam was giving a khutbah or something. Somebody's talking, and one brother got upset, and he stood up and he said, "What you're saying is not true." The other person got upset and said, "Shut up and sit down." And the first person said, "But it is not true." This other person got up and punched him in the face. Broke the nose, broke the, glasses. Okay? This person later charged him. He was charged. And the person who was hit, he knew I was there. He said, "Dr. Saab, did you see the whole event?" I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "Can I call you as a witness in the court?" Be stand firm for justice. As a witness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this other person who hit was one of the very reputable member of the community. Big name. Right? Chiefs. Rich. So the community elders came to me and says, "Cholo nahi jao court. Don't go to witness. You're going to just create more problems. Just say I can't go." And ye to nahi ho sakta. You cannot ask me to give witness to something I was witness to when my witness is asked. Because this is what Allah said in the Quran. If you have witnessed something and if your witness is sought, don't deny it. Because otherwise you would have to be accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Baat kyun chupai? Sach kyun nahi bola? Why didn't you tell the truth? So they tried to convince me not to go. I said, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have to follow what Allah says." I went to the court, gave the witness, and consequently made lots of enemies in the community. For many years. For many years, not just one day. And lots of people stopped talking to me.
Allah.
That's not easy. You're absolutely right.
But this is for external parties. External parties, sometimes you say to yourself, these are external parties. you're not dealing with them on daily basis, or you're not seeing their faces, routinely. But people who are in triple man, this is not a matter of life and death. But I tell you, man, this is something.
It's very difficult. It's very. Dekho, following and living by the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is never going to be easy. Choosing to live by the guidance provided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is never going to be easy. If it was easy, it's not a test anymore. If living by the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be easy, it would no longer be a test. We have to do the best we can, but we need to know how Rasulullah advised us and the benefits of it and the responsibilities in it. And last but not least, he said, abundantly recite, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There's no might, no power except with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As this is from the treasures that are underneath the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-azim. There are many, many, many ahadith about La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-azim. Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu narrated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah is the treasure that is underneath the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, when somebody recites this, it is a remedy for 99 diseases. And the least of which is anxiety. The Prophet ﷺ said, when a man goes out of his house and says, Bismillah tawakkaltu ala Allah wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-azim, in the name of Allah, I trust in Allah, there is no might and no power but in Allah, the following will be said to him at that time. You are guided, defended and protected. And the shayateen will go far away from him, and another shaitan will say, how can you deal with the man who has been guided, defended and protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? In Madinah al-Munawwara, I'm going to finish with this last one. In Madinah al-Munawwara, when Rasulullah had made the hijrah, and lots of believers who had converted left in Makkah. So one of those Sahabi left there and was caught. There were two brothers or two friends, I don't remember, but one of them was caught. And they imprisoned him. They would not let him go. They tied him up with the ropes and they imprisoned him. The other person came to Rasulullah and he said to him, what happened? Now, at that time, there was no Muslim army. Right. Rasulullah had just migrated. There was nothing he could do about it. He said to send this message to your brother. Tell him to keep reciting La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Subhanallah walhamdulillah la hawla wa la. He sent the message to him. Many days later, this other person came to Rasulullah with lots of goats and sheep. He came to report to Rasulullah and he said, what happened? I heard that you were in prison. He said, yes, but I also got your message of what to do. So I kept reciting La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, and one day all the ropes broke by themselves. And I just not only left there, I brought some of the sheep with me as well. So La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah is very important. It has lots of power. Remember to recite it in any time of hardship. Any time of hardship, always remember to say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Bismillah tawakkaltu ala Allah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. यार इतनी जरूरी नसीहतें हैं. So important advices that are related to our everyday life. If we only understand it, remember it, and try to live by it. We'll not be perfect. But if we try to live by it, that's good enough. Because you won't even try it if Allah would not help you. Wanting to try it would also be the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that puts you in your heart to try it. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان العظيم ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين اللهم إنك عفو كريم رحيم تحب فاعف عنا يا كريم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب القبر وقنا عذاب الحشر وقنا عذاب الميزان ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات وصلى الله تعالى على خلقه محمد أجمعين برحمته